Hello, this is John Majori with MajoriOnBowie.com, and this is the MajoriOnBowie.com YouTube channel where I post a new interview every week that has something to do with David Bowie. And for daily content, visit the blog, www.majorionbowie.com, where I post something new about David Bowie every day. And today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest. I'm speaking with Nacho, a British self-taught filmmaker whose passion for film began as a teenager managing a video store in South London, but his life path took him to Hong Kong, where he lives today. One of the things that I've come to appreciate is that there's a global David Bowie community, and within that community, Nacho is a revered figure whose work is appreciated by fans, collaborators of Bowie, academics, and many more. Even if you're not familiar, or if you're not familiar with Nacho's work, you're going to want to watch this video, but after it's done, you're going to want to go to his YouTube channel, Nacho's Video, where he has amassed over 30,000 subscribers and has had over 20 million views on, I don't even know how many videos, but they're all worth watching. Since 2015, his work has included restoring and reimagining music videos, especially those of David Bowie, but not just David Bowie. Additionally, Nacho has made documentaries about figures related to Bowie, such as Mark Wardell, who's been a guest on this show, as well as Carlos Alomar and George Murray, who I'd like to have on this show. Notably, Nacho's talents has earned recognition from publications such as Rolling Stone, NME, Far Out Magazine, as well as Bowie's official channels. And he's now set to bring his visual artistry to the stage as part of the Back to Berlin, also known as the DAM Tour, which I'm going to ask him about. So Nacho, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much, John. That's a very flattering introduction.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. But let me start. I described in my words how I would characterize what you do, but how would you describe what you do?
I think you've characterized it well. The thing started by simply wanting to polish existing videos that I felt weren't being done justice, you know. Especially going back 10 years, a lot of the videos on YouTube, classic videos, were just like in there in shoddy condition. The audio was not synced properly, or it was a poor quality audio, or the thing was jumping around. And it was just a situation that I felt that I wanted to kind of rectify. So that's kind of how it started. But very quickly, within 2 or 3 or 4 videos, I wanted to create my own videos, and it just sort of happened organically. I don't really know exactly how that came to be. I was just learning how to edit, and I found that it was something that I was organically, naturally quite skillful at. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
I would start making my own small videos, and to my astonishment, they seemed to come out quite well. And putting them up on YouTube, they were well received. So I thought, well, okay, other people feel the same way, you know. And so yeah, reimagining is a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bowie videos in particular have clicked, especially with, you know, among Bowie fans. And why has Bowie particularly worked? Is there something particular about Bowie in video that's different than other artists in video?
You mean for me or in general?
Well, in general, I mean, my observation is that there's a lot of excitement about your Bowie videos. And I don't know, if you had done this with Bob Dylan or George Harrison, do you think you would have had the same reaction?
I was kind of unaware that there was this kind of, there was already an existing fan-made video scene.
Yeah.
That lives on mostly YouTube. I was unaware of that. And it's not that I thought I was unique. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just making these things and uploading them with no expectation. But with Bowie, there were some others that had done something like I have been doing in a more sort of primitive fashion, because the technology just wasn't there. And retrospectively, I kind of found out that some of the videos I've made were kind of basically had already been made a decade prior to that, but very, very sort of, yeah, primitive versions.
Yeah.
But with Bowie, I mean, he was such a visual artist, right? I mean, the kind of way I see it is, especially for a newer generation. I mean, you and I, grew up with artists like Bowie producing music and producing art in front of us, and we're very in touch with the experience of that and the kind of history of it. And we know the eras because we grew up in them, and the looks, and we attach certain videos with certain songs. The example I always have to think of is Ashes to Ashes. You can't, when you hear Ashes to Ashes, you can't, in your mind, you can't separate it from the visual that
Right.
you've received from the video. You just can't.
Yeah.
I believe I can't anyway. When I hear it, I see that video. Um, and I think that whilst the new generation of fans can obviously listen to all the music, and they can appreciate it and it's good enough, of course it is. But um, how can a new generation of fans of any artist really understand the kind of full picture if there's not adequate, video evidence? And well, I'll tell you a short story. When I first came to Hong Kong, where I live, I went out on a kind of a date with a young woman, and we went back to my place, and we were kind of explaining our musical taste to each other by watching YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And so she was saying, let's watch Radiohead, which I'm already a fan. So and it sort of, with me, it kind of boiled down to, well, with me, it's David Bowie. That's where it all began. And searching around on YouTube looking for, and she knew David Bowie wasn't, she had some favorites and so on. But searching around on YouTube looking for adequate examples of the Bowie that I like, and I could find almost nothing. Once you get beyond Ashes to Ashes and Be My Wife and a few other bits and pieces, there's very little. And I would think, well, I want to let's watch Station to Station. There must be a good Station to Station live video. Well, of
Yeah.
course, at that point there wasn't.
Yeah.
There was terrible quality versions. So again, it felt like, especially for a visual artist like Bowie, that situation needed to be rectified. So again, that's kind of was kind of one of the inspirations behind it. It was just sort of like, how can people understand what this artist really was? Oh, and in fact, he was still alive at that point. How can people
Yeah.
understand who the guy is? What it was that was good about him in the 1970s when there's very little visual evidence of that.
Yeah.
So again, that was kind of like where I was coming from with that.
So today, since Bowie is not here to make new videos or to go on concert, I really think, and you mentioned like younger people, a lot of people are experiencing David Bowie through your work now. And, as evidence of that, if you're watching this video and you're going to check out one of Nacho's, look at how many people have viewed his videos. Tens of thousands of people viewed any particular video. And I want to sort of break that down by talking a little bit about the DAM tour, or the Back to Berlin tour. And I've got a promotional image for that behind me. I'm just going to pull up the poster here for a moment. So that's the promotional poster, and you see Nacho's name, Nacho Videos is right on the poster. So Nacho has become part of the attractions on the same bill as Carlos Alomar and Kevin Armstrong and George Murray and the others. So I wanted to ask you first, so what is the DAM trilogy and what is this tour?
What is the DAM trilogy or DAM trilogy? It's a slightly refashioned DAM trio. Carlos came up with Carlos Alomar, the Bowie's guitar player and arranger and band leader in the 70s and beyond. I'm not sure if it was when Bowie died or when Dennis Davis, the drummer of Bowie's drummer, died, and they died within months of each other. I'm not sure which one it was that sparked it off, but Carlos decided that the backing band, that was the constant, the musical constant after the Spiders, more or less,
Yeah.
latter part of the 70s. You know this, but anyway, needed a name, a catchy name. So he came up with DAM Trio, D for Dennis, A for Alomar, M for Murray. So DAM Trilogy is using the Damn Trio name that he came up with about a decade ago, and a kind of asserting that it's about, the tour's about the Berlin Trilogy, which is another thing that people are, even though it's not particularly accurate that those albums were necessarily recorded in Berlin, but that's the association. So it's kind of like a merging of Damn Trio and the Berlin Trilogy, and the tour and the set list will be centered on those records. It'll go slightly further back and it will go slightly further forward than that, but it's basically centered around those three records.
And what's your role on the tour?
That's kind of remains to be seen exactly. I mean, Carlos and I have been talking about the tour, or the possibility of a tour, for a while. We became kind of friends. Yeah, we're friends, I guess. I mean, obviously I admire him. And, you know, as you know, probably like yourself, I mean, he was this good-looking, smiling, beautiful guy that was always at Bowie's side back in the day, you know. And so it's one of these curious things that I end up on the poster, you know. Never expected that. But yeah, we became friends. I approached him a few years ago to make a documentary. I thought we could make an official documentary, you know, the best band you've never heard of kind of documentary about the Damn Trio,
Yes.
you know. With another filmmaker, and Carlos was super into it. But unfortunately, David left instructions with the Bowie estate that documentaries that try to sort of delve too deeply into his working method and his yeah, let's leave it at that, working method. He doesn't really want them to happen. We were asking to make that film about the time that we knew that the Moon Age Daydream film was going to be happening, and I knew something about the Moon Age Daydream film, so I felt it was a little bit unfair, because obviously that film attempts to delve into Bowie's kind of, you know, reasoning and things. But anyway, whatever. We were told, you know, we can't authorize that film, and if it's not going to be authorized, then we're on our own, and that's a very difficult thing to make. And once you get too much you know, music and video on there, YouTube won't, even if you put it on YouTube for free, YouTube won't allow it. It'll be blocked.
Yeah.
So one way or another, we couldn't make that film. So, okay, back to the drawing board. But in the meantime, Carlos and I had a lot of conversations. We became friendly, and I can't remember how it came to be that there was this possible talk about a tour, or when that happened. But it began to happen, and he began to think about possible set lists, and he began to send me his possible set lists, and I would give him feedback on that. And then it kind of came to fruition at the David Bowie World Fan Convention in Liverpool last summer. We met up and we hung out pretty much the whole weekend and had a blast. And he said, I think I want to announce, you know, the tour, and I want to do it kind of live in front of everybody during one of the panels that we were sharing, that I was chairing, and he and George were being interviewed by myself and others. I want to get a reaction from the audience. I want to involve the audience. I want them to hear me say it, and I want to, you know, feel their reaction and feel their enthusiasm, and then perhaps we can go ahead. And that's precisely what we did. And of course, the reaction was very enthusiastic, to say the least. So that's kind of little potted history of it, as far as I'm concerned. And then part of the announcement was about the tour was, he said, and I want this guy, me, to be involved. I want Nacho to come on board, and because the thinking is, of course, it's obvious, right? I mean, it's a tour playing Bowie songs. Well, the missing element is David Bowie.
Yeah.
So if there could be some imagery, and not just David Bowie's face or, you know, whatever, but, you know, related things, you know.
Right.
Heroes can have footage of the Berlin Wall, you know, things like that, you know. So a kind of more like a, well, I mean, I'm not, we don't have the budget, and I don't have the knowledge about how we could sync, you know, footage of Bowie singing Heroes to the band playing it live with a new singer. I mean, that's just not going to happen. That's beyond, you know, that's something that Roger Waters could do at his concert or whatever with technology and a mega budget. So this is going to be, the idea is it would be more like
Paul McCartney do that with John Lennon, and
yeah,
the
there you
person
go.
who put it together was Peter Jackson. the director.
Exactly, yeah. So if I'm not quite there yet, you know. Although I'd sometimes fantasize about asking Peter Jackson for a job. I wouldn't mind working on one of his projects and
Yeah,
learning how he does things. So this would be more kind of like, well, what I would love to do is basically be a VJ. And that's, again, it's something I've never done. I have been a DJ in the past. And I presume it's a similar principle. You've got two video sources and you can blend them together, you know. And so my idea was that for each song, there's an amount of material that I have, and there are some points in the song where I want to like switch, you know, sources, so will have a live feel. And I like the fact that it could go a little bit wrong.
yeah,
It'll be spontaneous, it will be live, it will be exciting, at least for me.
yeah,
You know, I'll be at a laptop somewhere, you know, sweating, hoping that this thing's going all right. But it would add a kind of a live feel rather than just like press play and, you know, hope it more or less works. So that's the kind of idea. However, we've yet to kind of finalize, and you know, there are tremendous difficulties. I mean, I'm in Hong Kong. I do have a job. I have a cat, as I mentioned. So that's a month of my life where a lot of things have got to be covered. And also, you know, one of the reasons I left Northern Europe a long time ago is because I don't like the cold weather. So this is launching into Scandinavia and Germany and Holland in November.
yeah,
That's not exactly my flavor. So that's also kind of, so these practical things are also playing on me a little bit. So we don't actually know. Carlos is very, very caught up in the details with the band and the music and some musicians that he likes, but he's not necessarily played with. So we haven't had a conversation at this point for a couple of 2 or 3 weeks about exactly how we're going to do it. So the short answer is I don't exactly know what level of involvement I'll have.
yeah,
I mean, to go on tour with David Bowie's band, as I see it, I mean,
yeah,
it's a wet dream, man, you know.
yeah. No, I'm
Um,
very jealous.
yeah, so you know, I mean, if I'm saying all that stuff about cat job weather, if really if the opportunity's there, I will have to do it. You know,
Yeah,
there's no way I can, you know, not do that. But we'll have to see. I just don't know yet.
yeah,
But at the very least, it's my intention to fully support Carlos as far as I can. So, for example, I'd like to make, and we've talked about this too, some promotional video. There's got to be some element in there about Dennis Davis. It would probably require, therefore, perhaps a video they could show, you know, at some point during the show as a kind of tribute or something. But again, all these kind of things have to be, he and I have to work it out, you
yeah.
know. Unfortunately, I've got, you know, most of the year to do all that. So
Some of what you're describing, you did something along those lines in the forum that you're talking about at the World Fan Convention last year, and then you made a video that incorporated that panel. And I want to ask you a couple questions about it. And I'm going to actually show a clip from that. But one of the things that struck me as I was watching it is we're watching a Nacho video of people watching a Nacho video. And it
and there's
reminded me,
Nacho watching his own video as well.
right, exactly. And it reminded me, I'll tell you, the first thing that entered my head was the opening of the Alfred Hitchcock movie Rear Window, where the camera goes into the window, right? And that's a commentary on, I don't know, voyeurism or something, or how we experience.
Yeah, yeah.
How conscious of you were you of that as you were putting this together?
Putting that film together.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, there's a that element slightly bothers me in a way, and it also slightly bothers me that it could be viewed as a bit of a narcissistic project because I'm in it a lot, and I didn't really necessarily want to be, but I needed to be in it
yeah,
because I'm kind of semi-narrating it in a way.
right,
Um, uh, so, I mean, I didn't credit myself. You know, when I come on screen and I don't say Nacho. You know, I'm slightly bothered about it as as a piece of work, but I couldn't see another way of doing it. And as a narrative, it works if I insert myself asking certain questions that then get answered that
Right.
carry. And it's kind of like, and that 20 minutes or 25-minute film or whatever is the de facto Damn Trio documentary that I wanted to make
Yeah.
in very much a minimized style, right? When I thought about a proper Damn Trio documentary with Carlos and George and so on, and telling the story, I thought about them telling the story,
Yeah.
with archive footage, up-to-date stuff, little tales of those days and things. And so this 20 minutes is just a kind of little taster of what perhaps could have been. I'd arranged with my friend Bernd from Germany, who's another filmmaker, to come over, and he did a lot of the shooting that we used.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so all the material was there, and I also felt that if the Damn Trio getting back together is a big deal, and it is a big deal, and there's this Nacho video guy sitting there, and there's his buddy filming it all. If I don't produce a film, it's kind of like it's not right.
Right.
It means it's not a big deal. And anyway, I had no doubt with all of this material and all of these good interviews we had, and plus some of the material that I had put together specifically for the event. It was just a no-brainer that that would be a good little film. And
Yeah.
so I just started building it, and it was just immediately evident that this is going to be a nice thing to watch.
Yeah.
Enough archive footage, enough bits and pieces people haven't really seen to keep them interested from that angle, and a little mini celebration of what was, in fact, for us that were there, that was involved, was really special, was really enjoyable,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you said it that it's not just putting a camera in front of a talk, right? So you incorporated archival footage, and one of the things that occurred to me is you're able to uh, draw people in by injecting elements into what they're watching that sort of brings to life what the people on stage are talking about. And then the other thing that you did is at the end, you you sort of reveal, I think you call it a mini video of the secret life of Arabia.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to pull up. But before I pull it up, I want to just note one thing and then ask you how you did it. It maybe never occurred to me that Peter O'Toole in that movie looks like David Bowie.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Yeah. And we're going to see this in a moment, but you managed to find um, a, a clip from the movie where it looks like he's walking to the beat of The Secret Life of Arabia. At what
Yeah, yeah.
point did that connection, like, how did you pick up on that? It's a long movie.
So basically, yeah. So just give a little background. I kind of like, I really, really got back into, like a lot of us perhaps, I really, really got back into Bowie in a big way when he passed.
Yeah,
And I joined some of these fan groups, and I started making these videos, and I started thinking a lot more about Bowie's material. And it occurred to me that Beauty and the Beast should not have been the second single from Heroes. It should have been Secret Life of Arabia. I have read somebody said that Bowie wasn't that keen on Secret Life of Arabia. I find that hard to believe. But anyway, in my opinion, that should have been the second single. It should have been, I mean, back then in 1977 or 78, it would have been by then, I guess. It was the start of the 12-inch maxi single, the extended version,
yeah,
right? You remember? So
yeah,
it should have been a 12-inch extended version. Maybe they could have beefed up the bass a little bit, but whatever. It would have been played in discos. It was a fantastic disco track. And then Bowie should have gone to Wadi Rum in Jordan with the camera crew, and he should have pounced around in the Lawrence of Arabia gear and
yeah,
sat on a camel, and we could have a really camp and funny, Lawrence of Arabia alike promotional video for Secret Life of Arabia. It'd be a superb. She should have done it. I mean, maybe he thought of it. I don't know, or maybe he was, already into the tour, the '78 tour by then. So uh, obviously, what my brain did was then make the video,
yeah,
with Lawrence of Arabia. And Lawrence of Arabia is one of my favorite
yeah,
films.
yeah.
And Peter
Beautiful.
O'Toole is a beautiful looking guy at that point. And and they look very similar. The eyes and the blonde thing, and the
Yeah,
cheekbones. I mean, and I had I had already tried, I'd already sort of clipped some various parts of Lawrence of Arabia and sort of shuffled them all together in a file in the editing suite, thinking one day I'll make a video of this. And I'd already come up with just that first scene where you hear Carlos is opening guitar and those camels walk past that window.
Yeah.
I'd already said that that's the beginning, and blowing out the match, which is very near the beginning of the movie. That was already going to be the beginning. And yeah, that night that the guys played those two songs, one of them being Secret Life, on stage, and I got back, as I say in the film, I got back, I was half cut. I'd had a great night, and the following day was going to be the Damn Trio panel with the announcement about the tour and blah blah blah. And I just couldn't. Even though it was already late, I just couldn't go to bed. It was just like, you're going to have to make that video, just make a sort of short mini version. And so I just quickly shuffled it all together, and it worked. It was one of those sort of miraculous things, and so if that answers the question, but but what we see on the finished film had a lot more work done to it subsequently. Like him striding along the top of that train was something I added later. That wasn't on this small little version that I made for the show itself. I just wanted that hand clap bit. I knew people would laugh, and then we fade. But
that was the best part.
I know, it's so funny.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
So let's take a look at this. So what we're about to see is actually the tail end of the longer documentary about the Damn Trio that's showing this mini video of Lawrence Arabia. So that's what we're about to see.
Okay.
That is just a little clip of some of what we were talking about. And do you want to say anything else about what we just saw there?
I mean, yeah, I mean, watching it again, my reaction was I was also like surprised how good. I mean, because I made it on my laptop, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it's on the big screen, and I look at Carlos and he screams out in laughter, and the audience laugh. I mean, that was my genuine reaction, as I found it funny too. Now I've seen it a million times, having subsequently gone back to it. At some point, I'm slowly expanding it. A lot of some of my projects take a very long time. That will probably be a full video that I'll put up on YouTube at some point. Because again, it kind of, to my mind, it needs to exist.
Yes.
He didn't make a video back in the day, so I'll make it for him. This is how I feel.
So I'm watching you up there on the stage, and there's the interaction, the interplay between Carlos Alomar and George Murray and the video that you made. And I reflect on this project that I'm doing here, and it occurs to me that the interplay and the relationship between fan and artist, it's more interactive than most people think. Is that your experience?
This is what I've discovered. Yeah. I think about this sometimes, and I wonder. I mean, back in the day when they were playing back in the 70s or 80s, were they so approachable? I mean, the stories we hear is that they were. The stories we hear from people like Patty Brett, one of the Sigma kids, is that they were entirely approachable, and that Carlos was very generous and very, helpful, and I believe they became friends. I suppose, because you're having reflected on this, I reflect that, you need to keep time wasters away from you if you're a busy person. You can't just accept everybody in and talk endlessly, but what I've observed of Carlos, who he's a very lively, very busy person, but he'll always give people time. You know, I've got a great story, really sweet story from the convention in Liverpool last summer. A chap wanted to meet him, so I invited this guy into the kind of green room, and the guy started telling Carlos that, you know, he'd recently, I think he'd lost his wife or something like that. I can't remember the exact detail. And he was sort of thanking Carlos, saying, you know, you guys doing this is really like, uh, has really been a balm for how I feel. And Carlos immediately took him to one side. The guy was in tears. He was hugging him, you know, like really a beautiful gesture. Um, yeah, I, I, I suppose 30, 40 years down the line, everybody's celebrating what happened, including the people that helped make it happen, you
Right.
know, and it's more like a joining together of saying, you know, it's something really special. Um, and I suppose if you, I, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for that attitude. I wouldn't have any respect for people that think that they are somehow elevated
Right.
because they did that work. It's not like that,
Yeah.
is it? I mean, it's just not like that at all.
It's amazed me, the artists that I've spoken with who worked with him, how to a person they've been very modest people, and even though they're enormously accomplished.
Right.
Yeah. So there's another, you're making um, David Bowie videos and David Bowie content, as the young people call it, with
Yeah.
with material that he created, with the cooperation of people that he worked with, and whatever it means to be official. What you're doing is known and smiled upon by David Bowie officialdom. There's another type of um, David Bowie material that's proliferating around the internet, which is created by AI, including fake videos and even fake voices. So, do you think that there's any artistic potential for the use of AI? Is what we're seeing now? Um, uh, is there any artistic merit to that, or is this a tool that could be used in a better way, or is it just a dead end?
There's a lot of ways to answer that. The first thing that comes to mind is to say that I use AI, but I don't use AI creation tools. I use AI tools to clean up, stabilize, and boost the quality of what we're
Yeah,
seeing, you know. But
yeah,
that's AI as well, you know. That AI will imagine a missing frame, for example, or fix a broken frame, you know. Uh, so in that regard, it's just as fake as an AI creation tool, but it's simply, you know, I mean, I look at what Peter Jackson does. He's using the same thing that I'm using, perhaps a more sophisticated version, but he's using tools that fill in the gaps, you
yeah,
know, that polish the rough edges off. As when it comes to AI creation tools, I mean, we've all seen these images and videos of Bowie that kind of seem to merge several eras in one go. So he's got the haircut from Diamond Dogs, and he's got the stripe from Aladdin Sane, and yet he's wearing the clothes from, you know, I don't know, the Let's Dance era or whatever. I mean, it, I try not to join the chorus of disapproval that we see
yeah,
on the on the on the fan groups, right? I mean, I guess in the right hands, I mean, some of the fan artwork is amazing, right? Some of the fan artwork is amazing, whether that's done with an AI tool or done on an easel or done on Adobe Illustrator.
yeah,
It doesn't really matter, right? If it's a really nice piece of work, you
yeah,
know, we don't really
yeah,
care. I mean, so presumably AI can and perhaps already is producing stuff that is of value, but and then again, the other way I'd answer it is you can't really blame people for trying to make art with or about this person that they love and admire, just in the way that I am, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But there are there are for some of us there are lines that just shouldn't be crossed, you know.
yeah,
I mean, I have this thing, and I'll go off at a tangent. When I was young, one of my first jobs in the music industry was working for a company a record distribution company, records in those days, for CDs. And one of the things that this company specialized in was Elvis Presley. And so this was like early 80s. So we were still in that kind of post Elvis death moment where he became super popular when he passed. I mean, when he passed, I was like 11 years old. I was a huge Elvis fan when I was like a kid, you know. That was the first record I ever bought, was Elvis 40 Greatest. So even by the early 80s, there was still this huge kind of fan base. So this company I worked for sold Elvis records, and we would import records from everywhere. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. It was just different sleeve, different compilation, different compiled differently, from, you know, and we would have these rabid fans come and buy this stuff from us. And there was a store in Shoreditch High Street in East London called Elvisly Yours, and they had a lot of unauthorized Elvis products.
Funny name.
Really tacky product, some of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and we would get this individual who ran the store come and take these discs from us, and he would tell us about his latest products and stuff. And eventually he got sued by the Elvis estate for this one product. This is as I recall it, and the product was the Elvis edible underpants. And so the reason I'm telling you that is that we long ago reached the Bowie edible underpants moment. You know, there's so much tack.
Yeah.
There's so much awful product around. And so I kind of like, but the AI thing is different because that's just fans. It's just fans wanting to kind of like emulate or make something around their hero. You know, it's totally legit in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, putting the Aladdin Sane flash on a pair of trainers and selling them for £150, that doesn't seem legit to me. That
Yeah.
seems like bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I mean, I eventually, perhaps somebody like me, unless I learn the tools myself, will become redundant, because presumably eventually these AI creation tools will be able to do everything I do, but loads better. You know, they'll be able to take this picture that's behind you of the guys playing in '76 and animate it, and it will be thoroughly realistic. Presumably that's going to happen, you
Yeah.
know. But we're certainly not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even the AI cleanup tools that I use, you have to have a very careful hand, because if you turn everything up to 11, man, you know, you get some real fakey, washed out kind of like, you know, cell phone Photoshop thing that the girls use to make their faces all smooth.
Right.
You have to be very, very careful, even with just these cleanup tools.
You have a video on your website where you demonstrate how you cleaned up a commercial that Bowie made in Japan, and I'm not going to show it, but it's there if anybody wants to see it. It's not that long, but the problem was there was some Japanese characters that you wanted to remove, but Bowie's hand goes in front of the character, so you needed to remove his hand, and you demonstrate how you sort of recreate the hand.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, so that's a lot of work, and that was frame by frame. But I mean, that was 5 years ago. Whenever I made that, presumably now an AI creation tool could have made that hand for me.
Yeah.
You know, in perhaps just as realistic a way.
So in a couple of years, we can see David Bowie in Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think maybe we can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but there's the ABBA show in London, right? Where
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that show. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah.
And so we'll get the Bowie show if the Bowie estate will allow it.
I've read that it might be in the works.
My fear about that is that it will be not very much different from seeing a tribute band that wants to play the whole plethora.
Yeah.
You know, wants the Ziggy, wants the Diamond Dogs, you know, right through, you know, and we don't get to see a show that replicate. I mean, I want to go and see the Station to Station show.
Yeah.
Now, if they want to replicate that, you know, I'll be first in the queue.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't necessarily want to see a show where we get all the greatest hits, you know, with this kind of Ziggy type person, Ziggy type imagery. So I don't know. I mean, you know, with Bowie, there's this for us real fans, it's got to be very, very authentic. Otherwise, we're really offended by it, right? So I think that show could easily fall foul.
So that actually touches on something else I wanted to ask about. Um, you're almost talking about a concierge service. You want to see the station show. And in today's media environment, that's almost possible in the sense that you are making content. I'm going to use that term content that you, even the way you arrange your website, you could see restored videos from the 70s, from the 80s, from beyond, whatever era of Bowie you're interested in, you could pick it out on your website, and you're able to start experimenting in 2015 and create a following that now there's tens of thousands of people are looking for your next video. 50 years ago, Alan Yentob makes Crack Actor, and it's either going to make it onto the BBC or it's not, right? And then nobody would see it. And they have to see it that night that it's on. Otherwise, they might never have the chance again, or it's going to be on one or two more times. It was years before I was able to see it.
Me too.
Right. And so on the one hand, everybody who saw that has this point of commonality. But on the other, there's so much less, right? There's fewer documentaries. There's fewer people making documentaries. There's fewer people making videos. Do you think we've, in terms of our cultural diversity has enhanced? Is that civilization moving forward, or have we lost something in terms of common shared experience?
I think there are still documentaries being made. I mean, again, we can reference Moon Age Daydream, whatever one may feel about that film. It got made and it was very popular. A lot of people saw it. I mean, here in Hong Kong, I don't know any Bowie fans, so I took three friends with me that didn't really know his work. Three people considerably younger than me, and made them sit through this 2.5 hour thing. But I mean, it got made and it got seen. And there are other kind of like fairly high profile music documentaries and even biopics. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. I went to see the Dylan thing, A Complete Unknown.
Yes.
Last week, I think. I thought it was excellent. Questlove making that Summer of Soul documentary a couple of years ago. This year he's made Sly Lives, I think it's called, a documentary about Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I'm sure that would be great. I mean, documentaries are being made, and people do discuss them. I mean, Moon Age Daydream was a huge topic to discuss, partly because it was so divisive. Opinion about it was so divisive, but I mean, even, I make this Secret Life of the Damn Tree, or whatever I called it, documentary, and it gets shared on, some people hate it and some people like it. So I think, I mean, in terms of David Bowie, I think that the issue is that the estates have these limitations that they apply, and I rather wish that they wouldn't. There's a lot more that could be done. So I always give the example of the Neil Young Archives site. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Are you a fan in any way of Neil Young?
I am. It's a funny thing. I've often thought that if I went to the right Neil Young concert in 1987, I would be doing all this about Neil Young.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, in 1986, he played in Wembley Arena, and I was in the music industry. I got a free ticket. I only went because I'd heard that Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth would be there, and there might be an after party, and I could meet Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth. And I was only dimly aware of Neil Young's music. I think I knew Hey My, that's all.
Yes.
And I went with a friend who did like Neil. and we had our good seats at Wembley Arena, and it was just mind-blowing. It was a Crazy Horse. It was this full-on psychedelic rock experience with these slow 15-minute guitar dirges, and it was magnificent. And that
Yeah.
set me off in that direction. Anyway, but there's a site, NYA, Neil Young Archives, where everything's up there. Everything is up there. Everything. Stuff that you can't buy. And it's like a filing system. So, you know, every album is there and it's annotated in every possible way. Huge stories about the creation of each album, photographs, associated videos, concerts from the era, live albums or live recordings from the era. It goes on. You could never get to the end of it, kind of thing. I'm not
Yeah.
such a significant fan that I've spent hours on the New Young Archive site, but I know it's there and it's a magnificent thing. And I'm frustrated that the Bowie estate don't have something similar. I mean, they have a very static website that's
Yeah.
very inspiring.
Yeah.
They made that app a few years ago, the David Bowie is app a few years ago. Well, it's never been updated.
Right.
So to me, this is more the issue, is that there's so much interest in David Bowie, and surely it's peaking now, and surely it'll at some point that peak will drop off.
Yeah.
So let's really like have something like the Neil Young Archives, for
Yeah.
example, you know, that really like, so that there's this endless amount of material. And I'm glad, I mean, of course, in London later this year, they'll open this archive, right? A real archive. I mean,
Yeah. The Victoria and Albert Museum.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure of the format of it. I have heard that it's perhaps not what people necessarily think it is. I think people are thinking that it's a permanent David Bowie is, and I believe it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's a place where you can go and study. You can go and look at works as a kind of study project or something. I'm not quite sure it's like a huge display of stuff. So I mean, anyway, there's that, but the estate guards things very carefully. You know, there's a lot more stuff that could come out, but they are very careful about what comes out. So I don't know. I prefer Neil Young's way of curating
Yeah.
things, where just everything's available. Come and take it, warts and
Yeah.
all. You know, I think that's and for people like myself that want to see everything. You
So
know,
I'd like to show clips from two more of your videos, and because I think these illustrate different different types of things that you do, and you were talking about interest in David Bowie. The next clip I want to show is of the restored appearance by Bowie on Saturday Night Live in 1979. And there's particular interest in this now because it's the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live. And in every story about that, this appearance is mentioned. And I know that there was a documentary about Saturday Night Live that had clips of this appearance, but it was very difficult to find all three songs in one clip before I saw your restored video. And the sort of the piecemeal clips that existed on YouTube before, they were grainy and they were sort of cut off. And I really think, if you think about the technology that you would have watched this on in 1979, this is actually the clearest that anybody's ever experienced is your video.
yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, so I'm going to pull that up, and it's worth watching the whole thing because it's three songs. I'm not going to play all three songs, but I just want to give a flavor of what it is that we're talking about. So why is it that we can't find quality versions of a video like that, or we couldn't before you restored it?
Yeah. So I think it's NBC that own the rights for
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live. Is that right?
Yes.
So they're very particular about what they allow on YouTube, and they basically don't allow anything on YouTube. So the YouTube algorithm is aware of everything. It's very rare that you can put any content up on YouTube and the algorithm doesn't recognize it. And the algorithm has already been instructed, if it's David Bowie, Heroes, Live at Earl's Court, the sources, the LWT program, we allow that, and ITN get the credit for it and get whatever payment is due, and Nacho's videos gets nothing, and that's fine, you know, because that's my stock in trade, is that I don't make any money, but I guess, you know, I get the likes, and I get the views, and I get the credibility, and I get, you know, people love what I do, and ITN get paid, and that's a great arrangement. The algorithm then looks at NBC content, and it's been instructed that nothing is going to be allowed. And there are even other content providers that if you upload their video, you'll get a copyright strike. And if you accumulate enough copyright strikes, they'll take away your YouTube channel. So all of this has to be navigated. And so in the case of NBC, yeah, they just don't allow any SNL material on YouTube. Now, there are a few bits and pieces from way back that seem to have fallen through the cracks. Perhaps they were put on YouTube before the algorithm, you know, was in effect, or who knows. But I've tried frequently to upload Saturday Night Live material to YouTube, and it always instantly gets blocked. So that's why you can't see it. I tried to upload this SNL video on my Daily Motion account, that also got blocked. I tried to upload it on Vimeo, and just recently, about 2 weeks ago, Vimeo wrote to me and said, "We're deleting your whole channel." So okay. So these, I mean, this kind of stuff I've been navigating for years, and it's something that you have to learn as you go along, that certain things just aren't allowed to be seen. So trying to watch SNL just now, possibly the reason we've got glitches is because the material is held on a Russian social media site called OK. OK.ru is the address.
Wow.
You can't have SNL material on any Western site. So it's over there in Russia where they don't care. And then we go through my website so that we can access the Russian site. I know in some territories that the Russian social media is now banned, so nobody can see it. So there are all kinds of like hoops that we have to jump through sometimes just so that something can be seen.
I had no idea.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So as you say, I mean, there's never been a decent quality version of Saturday Night Live. So I managed to get a quite good quality version of the master. And then, you know, I put it through all the processes, all the AI cleanup processes and boosting processes and so on. And then it looks really good.
Yeah.
Re-EQ'd the sound, and it's, you know, I wish it could be more widely seen. It's the thing that I have now is way better than even the version on the DVD, for example. But people aren't allowed to see it, except through my website, going to this Russian site. But I mean, I'd be surprised if it's had a few hundred views at this point, because, you know, none of the search engines will include this Russian site. So if you Google it, you won't find it.
Well, if somebody's watching this interview and they're interested in seeing it, go to Nacho's website. I'll put a link in. I'll put a link to that website in this video and on my blog. And you might have seen clips.
That's why I wanted to make the website, is because so many things are excluded from YouTube and so on. So that website collates everything together.
Not to get too far afield, but I found that and the Kenny Everett show appearance from the same year as heads and tails his best, most creative, most compelling television appearances ever. That one year he must have just been bursting with creativity. Yeah. And it's weird and it's funny, and his performance is, you know, just amazing. So if you're a David Bowie fan and you haven't seen this, go to Nacho's website.
Thank you.
So let me ask you about one other video that is also something that people couldn't have seen. And one of my favorite of your videos is you created a video. This is not restored. This never existed. It's for the song Candidate, Sweet Thing Candidate, which is from Diamond Dogs. And you have footage from a Diamond Dogs concert, and that show is famously, there's no complete video of an entire concert from that show, and it's sort of famous. And you intersperse it with clips, and some of which I think came from Crack Actor, some of which I don't recognize at all. And you weave it together with a live soundtrack. So this is not Bowie's, this is not taken from the studio recording, it's taken from a live recording. And you've created a video that never existed before. For, you know, this, it's one of my favorite songs. And I think for a lot of Bowie fans, it's like, you know, it's almost a spiritual song. It's
Totally.
So just before we take a look at it, just tell us a little bit about what goes into making a completely new video like that.
So when it comes to something that's got more of a creative element, and it could also be, the same could be said for The Secret Life of the Damned Trio, the same could be said for the Man Who Fell to Earth documentary I made.
Yeah.
What I discovered in myself, and it's common to a lot of people that create things, is that I just start working. I don't know, you know, an idea comes, or I'm not usually that confident in the idea. I just get the idea and I think, well, I'll give it a try and I'll see where we get to. And so that's a good example of that. Most of the material comes from Cracked Actor. I've got the song, it's a 8-9 minute song, the audio, and, you know, sync the live parts that we have to the audio, but that only accounts for perhaps a half. So now we've got gaps, you know, so those gaps have got to be filled. And so a process starts happening where those gaps get filled. I'm not even quite sure how it happens. Okay, that works, that doesn't work, let's shuffle that around, or that works much better. And usually what happens is if it's going well, if it's looking like it's going to be a good video, I get very, very excited and very happy. And, you know, I'm just kind of falling over myself to get this thing made. And I obsess over it for how long it takes, a few days, a few weeks.
Yeah.
And kind of like, lo and behold, this thing just sort of unfolds in front of me, you know. And then I got the idea to make it kind of like, to make him kind of like a kind of like Travis Bickle taxi driver psychopath, you know. So I added that kind of element as well with the, you know, with the night scenes and the text that's a bit like the taxi driver text. So these things just kind of like come out of the ether. I don't know how it happens. And that's that video, you know, I'm really pleased with it. It needs to be remade because the source I had at that point wasn't that great. Since then, I've amassed a lot better quality material. I didn't really think about quality then. I just thought about creating stuff. I didn't really care that it wasn't, you know, so that video needs to be remade, and probably I will remake it at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of slowly getting around to remaking some of the oldies. So yeah, it's just, my mind just wants the thing to exist, and I'll do anything to make it happen. And I'll spend as much as whatever time it needs, you know, a few days on a passage that only lasts for a few seconds. I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So that the thing can exist.
Before we look at it, one last question about, where did you get the audio? That's not from David Live. Where is it from?
So yeah, so the audio was from a bootleg of the Universal Amphitheatre concert. There were several versions of the bootleg. I forget what this one was actually called. They vary slightly in quality, but quite good quality. So yeah, it just came from bootleg. It was before the Cracked Actor. It's the same recording as Cracked Actor, the Cracked Actor album that came out.
Yeah.
But it was prior to the album coming out, so I didn't have that as a source, the Cracked Actor. But I actually just answered somebody's question on YouTube about this, I think yesterday. I actually prefer the bootleg version. On the Cracked Actor album, Tony Visconti's really cleaned up the sound and really done wonders with the sound. But what he did with Sweet Thing Candidate is, in the Candidate section, for some reason he removed the fuzz guitar that comes in at the end, which is kind of like the best part.
Yeah.
When it really starts firing and you've got this grungy guitar. It's not like up front in the mix, but it's there and you know it's there. And on the final album, it's missing. And so even if I'd had the cracked actor recording, I wouldn't have used it because every time I hear it, it's like, oh, that little piece that I like is missing. So anyway, it came from a bootleg.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a look. I'll look at just a clip of it.
Yeah, there's the taxi driver text.
Yeah.
And the smoke.
Oh, we're not stopped. Is there anything behind us?
Yes, there's car.
But no.
Ready.
And I repitched the car siren so that it was in the note was the same as the guitar.
Sleep in the city, to love in a doorway, strangled some screams from the dawn. And isn't it me, putting pain in a stranger, like a portrait in a flash, trails on a leash. Will you see that I'm scared and I'm lonely? So I'll break up my room and yawn and around to the center of things, where the knowing one says, if you want it, boys, get it here, baby. Oh, boy, it's a cheap thing, cheap thing. I'm glad that you're older than me. Makes me feel important and free. I'd make you smile. Isn't that me? I'm in your way, and I'll steal every moment, yeah. If this trade is a curse, bless you and turn to the crossroads and hamburgers.
So I of course want to watch the whole thing, but
He was so good, man. That's so
Yeah.
good. Wow. Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what I was saying about watching videos late at night with that young lady trying to explain our musical taste to each
Yeah.
other. I mean, it was just rather than just sit there and listen to that song. Now there's a visual for that song,
Right.
and I think it's an appropriate. Actually, watching it now, I do think slightly differently, but it's basically an appropriate visual for that song. But I have to say, I must credit Alan Yentl, because really it's nearly all of it is from Cracked Actor. I mean, that's him, you know. I mean, and certainly the beginning is basically just as it is in Cracked Actor. I just kind of took his idea of interspersing the concert footage with the limo at night footage and the
right.
LA strip scenes. That was his idea. I just expanded on it. So I really must credit him.
Did he shoot the concert footage?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. That's in there, but it's one of the first songs in Cracked Actor, but it doesn't seem that quite so consequential because you don't get very much of the song.
Right.
You know.
So we didn't, I didn't show the whole video, but it's an 8-minute long video, and
right.
Right, and like you were saying, that there is, other than that, there is no Cracked Actor. I'm sorry, there is no Candidate Sweet Thing video. So yeah. So that's I think that's my favorite video of yours. So
thank you. Glad you like it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I made that. I remember I was in the States actually. I was in Boulder studying, doing a yoga teacher training course. I'm a yoga teacher. And I was supposed to be studying the coursework, and I got the idea for this video. And instead of studying the coursework after the class, I would sit there and piece together this crazy Sweet Thing video because it was coming out so good, and I couldn't stop myself, and I therefore didn't really do so well on this yoga course. I remember now.
yeah, the best thing about your website is that I don't even I was trying to count how many videos there are, and I lost count. So
Yeah, I
there's
don't know, a few
hours of
hundred.
videos.
Yeah, yeah. There's loads,
So,
and there's some I've missed, not even on there. Yeah.
yeah, so I was planning to pull up some more, but speaking of hours, you've been so generous with your time. Maybe you'd come back in the future. I don't want to keep you here all day. There are a couple of other questions I wanted to ask if you could just indulge me for a few more minutes.
Sure, of course, I'd love to.
So what's the holy grail of lost footage? What would you like to find in
Wow.
the store? Yeah.
I would have said, and I made a film about it, right? I would have said that the 78 Earl's Court footage, shot by David Hemmings, and the so-called stage movie that was made and was never released. I would have said that, but now we know it's coming out.
Yeah.
You know, it is coming out, and it's not the stage movie that Hemmings pieced together, but it's been remade as a concert movie, and that's coming out for sure. So then but I would have said that. I mean, at least we have something from the 74 tour, so it has to be the Station to Station tour, doesn't it? This has to be the Holy Grail. I mean, I've never heard nobody's ever told me that there's significantly more out there than the bits we've seen, which isn't much.
Not much. Yeah.
You know, we do see in the Moon Age Daydream film, we do see just the visual of Bowie in the orange jumpsuit in '76. We don't know. We don't have that's not what I would have done. To me, that's Holy Grail. Why can't we have it sync to the proper audio? That's what I would have done. But that's me. So I suppose that for me, the Holy Grail would be a significant portion of the '76 live show. I would just dearly love to see that.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
People have been on the trail for it. There are bits and pieces. There are a couple of small bits and pieces that people have that haven't made it out. Nothing significant that I'm aware of. One collector pointed out to me a photograph of a huge mega camera perched on the front of the stage. Well, what happened to that footage? We were asking, but it's 50 years ago, so anything could have happened to it. Yeah, so I guess that would be my answer.
Okay, well, that's an answer. So Nacho, this has been terrific, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I hope you will come back because I got through about half of my questions. And
okay, yeah. Well, should we reconvene after this tour, perhaps in 7 or 8 or 9 months?
That would be beautiful. That would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be really terrific. And let's stay in touch between now and then.
Great.
I do want to close out by asking the most superficial possible question, but I ask everybody the same closing question, which is, what is your favorite Bowie song and album?
Oh no. Oh no, I wish I knew this was coming.
So you're not watching my videos, because if you did, you would have known it was coming.
Damn, man, caught out. Well, since we just heard it, probably, I mean, Sweet Thing Candidate, Sweet Thing is without doubt one of my favorites. It is would be in my top 10 any day of the week since we've just heard it. So let's say that that's yeah. It would be hard to position that anywhere other than number one, but then there would be other number ones,
Yeah.
Album. I dearly love the Damn Trio era. I love many of the eras, right, and the albums, but I dearly love the Damn Trio era, and the quintessential Damn Trio album is Low for me. But then I also really love the Scary Monsters album, and Low came out before I was I was, 10 years old or whatever when Low came out, so I was not aware of it. And in fact, it was an album that I couldn't understand for about a decade. I couldn't really understand it. It was too kind of chilly for me as a kid. Whereas Scary Monsters came out, and I bought it when it came out. I bought Lodger. I wasn't super into Lodger. I thought maybe he's lost it. Even when I was that age, I was aware that like this doesn't seem as good as Heroes. Whereas when Scary Monsters came out, I was blown away. It was like, wow, this is like as good as anything he's done. And I think, and I've got a huge emotional attachment to that album. I played it to death.
Yeah.
I loved the side that wasn't the hits more than even the hits side.
Yeah.
The flip side, in other words, the latter half. I think today I'm going to have to say Scary Monsters is my favorite Bowie album. Yeah.
So just for the record, that is also my favorite Bowie album. And
oh, is it? Oh, nice one.
I would have much more difficulty telling you what my second favorite Bowie album is, but Scary Monsters has been consistently my favorite album for a very long time.
It's just so satisfying. It's such a brilliant record. It's such a brilliant record.
Yeah. Nacho, thank you very much. This has been wonderful. I'm glad we made the connection. I'm so grateful for you for everything that you do, because you've really made an enormous contribution to David Bowie's legacy. And we're never going to get a genuinely new David Bowie song, but we're going to get a new Nacho video, and it's the next best thing. So thank you.
Oh, yes, my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Very nice to meet you, John. Thanks so much for the interest.
Great. Thank you.